What's going on, y'all? This is Zach.
This is Jacob. What's going on?
This is the Music Garage Podcast. Welcome to, I don't know what episode is, like five or six, something like that.
I think. Yeah.
We're super pumped. If let's do some housekeeping first. If you haven't heard of us, haven't seen us, we have a lesson studio here in Fortville, Indiana. Yep. We teach hundreds of students every week. We have a whole squad. We have an instructor training program, and the best way you can help us out here is by going to fortvillemusicgarage.com and / I think
the shop.
The shop. I think I said shop multiple times.
It's the shop.
It's the shop. And we make our own merch, like the hoodie right there. Yep. That's the vintage motorcycle. Actually, I'm wearing that today too.
Yep.
Just different colorway. But that's the best way you can support us. We make that in-house. It's pretty cool. So today, we're following up with our Why We Teach video and podcast from the week previous. Mm-hmm. And so we're doing the how, the what, and the why. And today's episode, we're talking about the what. Yeah. What that looks like. Yep. And that's the As far as like the why we teach, what you found out is love, valued, and cared for, right? Like I think Jacob's heartbeat from the previous podcast, if you haven't listened to it, go to the why I teach, and you'll find like this massive transition that Jacob's had and I've had, and so we're here on purpose for a purpose, and that's to help every student feel loved, valued, and cared for. And today we're going to talk about the what behind that. And if you're watching right now, I'm going to hold up. This is a PDF doc that all of our families get upon enrollment, and it's called The Pillars of Student Progression, and we're just going to kind of talk about that, what that looks like from a lesson booth standpoint, and kind of the things that we look for as instructors to see how our students are doing and how we gauge how a lesson is going. Mm-hmm. So what do you want to do? Maybe go through the three pillars, talk about them first, and just, you want me to do that, lay it out? Yeah,
go ahead, lay it out. Just because this really is the heartbeat behind why we do what we do. Yeah. And this is, because not everybody here is like an aficionado for theory, and however, it is a core value of what we teach here. Yeah. And I think you do a really good job of explaining that and separating us out from everyone else. So
all right. So let's
go ahead and go through that.
Let's dive in. All right, I'm just gonna walk through this doc. In fact, I think it actually might be kind of cool. Let's maybe drop a link for that. I don't know if that's possible. Sure. We can drop a PDF download so you can look at this. Yep. And actually, I looked at this morning. There's a misspelling in there. So.
Oh my gosh.
You're welcome for that too.
Sweet.
All right. So three pillars of student progression here at the garage are as follows: relationship, rhythm, and repetition. And kind of all of those have different meanings. And the best way to describe it is by asking a question, what's the win? And to answer that, the win is not what you think it is. It's actually easier to find what it is not than what it actually is, because what the win is not is it's not a student being super proficient. It's not a student being the very best musician. It's not the perfect reader. It is not the perfect improviser. It's not the perfect improviser. It's not the student who practices an hour every day. Those are cool things. All of those things are cool if a student chooses to be that. Sure. But the win is not those things. So the question is well, what is it? And this is where the pillars come from: relationship. And so questions that we have as instructors is the student's relationship with the instrument, is it positive? Is that a thing is it a thing that they look forward to do? Is it a thing that they look forward to go get to do? Are they having a great lesson experience? Do they have a good relationship with their instructor? Do they feel loved, valued, and cared for and seen? Do they feel heard? Are they improving in some way, shape, or form? That might not look like we think it should look. Is confidence rising in other areas of the student's life? Is the student's sense of self-worth dependent upon what they produce or who they are? Wow. Just if you stopped right there, that totally frames up where our why is and the what we're looking for, because those are the wins that we are looking for inside of a lesson booth. Are they willing to show up on purpose? Are they having a good time? Do they feel heard, loved, valued, and cared for? Is their self-worth tied to their instrument and what they can do, or is it just who they are? Because what we're trying to accomplish is to give them a space to be free, to have a good, open, honest relationship with the instructor, as well as the instructor to the parent. Between those three and the instrument, super important. Next thing is rhythm. And that's a twofold. That is a physical rhythm musically, because that's a thing. And then it's rhythm of the instrument inside of their life. Mm-hmm. It's the rhythm of the beat, of the groove of a song, whatever it is that they're trying to do. And then is that happening inside of the home and inside of the lesson booth? So like just some questions. Is your student counting? Is your student counting out loud? Some don't. Most need to. Vocalists maybe tap. They nod along with it. Is your student displaying consistency when they are practicing? And you cannot hear consistency just by listening in every now and then. You got to have a committed ear standing outside of their bedroom or wherever they're at and actually listening, because it could be the same wrong note over and over again. Yep. And I would argue that hearing the same wrong note over and over again is actually consistency. We'll get into that later though.
Well, and it's funny because I have a student, we call him Big Tex. It's really funny if you know what he looks like.
Hold on.
Texas Ranger. Yeah. And every week his nickname progresses a little bit, and it's funny because it started ticking him off. He's like 8 years old.
He's a firecracker, man.
He is the funniest kid ever. And so anyway, he said to me the other day, we were practicing, he was getting really ticked off about the click, and he's a drummer, and we were playing to a click, and he goes, I think I'm better without the click, because without the click I can speed up when I want to. And I was like, right, that's what we're trying to kill. And he was like, yeah, but I like speeding up, watch. And then he like just went crazy for a second, and I was like, all right, let's bring it back. We started playing with the click again, and then the beat, it was a new beat. It was a little harder than what he's used to. Mm-hmm. It's adding some 16th notes for the first time. And he goes, and I was counting out loud while he was playing to kind of help him through it. Yeah, and he goes, can you stop? I do it a lot better when there's no counting. And I was like, Tex, listen to me. Him. And so then we stopped for a second. We took a break. We talked about something else, and then we went back to it. And I said, okay, now I want you to count out loud. He goes, actually, I can't count out loud, but I can count in my head. Watch. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, here's the deal. Today we are counting out loud. And I'm going to count out loud, and you're going to count out loud. The click's going to be on. It's going to be great. And he was like, project. I really don't like this. And I was like, I really don't care.
That's hilarious.
And we did that for like, I don't know, 6 or 7 minutes. Enough to where he got the idea, and then we moved on. But
I love it.
I was reading this morning, and as I actually read it every morning. And just every time I get to the rhythm, I think about his lesson. That was, I think, 2 weeks ago or last week
hilarious.
Or something.
Yeah, well, I thought you were talking about another guy that you might call Big Tex. I didn't even think about Walker, Texas Ranger.
Yeah, Walker, Texas Ranger.
So, like, let's riff on that for just a second. So, like, you're talking, what?
Big Tex, who do you think?
I was thinking about the Caterpillar sweater guy. I forget his name. He's new. I've not spent any time with him. He's your student, so I've never.
Drummer?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. Cool. We're on the same page. He in cowboy boots and a Caterpillar hoodie says, I should be called Big Tex, and he's huge.
Yeah.
he's a big boy.
That would be hilarious.
He's so tall. Anyways, so like what Jacob's talking about here, counting out loud, right? Like, so one of the things that I think we both experienced at this point, and all of our instructors have, is that like no one wants to do that. No one wants to count out loud. Some students like don't mind it, and some students actually enjoy it, but like a lot of students have like a massive aversion to it. And what I always try and do to explain that, and I explain this to parents too, to kind of help them along with it, is they're going to feel silly, they're going to feel a little weird. Sure. But like what happens is as our brain is thinking about what we're speaking out loud, and our ears are hearing what we're speaking back, and our hands are affirming it or not. Yep. And so it is the easiest way to correct somebody. And it's the easiest way for them to self-correct. And that is a huge thing that we teach here is like, if we're only going to have a student for on average, like 31 to 36 months, like if that's the truth, then we need to give all the tools we can to help them propel, to self-propel and to self-lead.
So I was thinking about this yesterday. My first student on Monday mornings, he's a new drummer. He's a young kid, wants to get into worship music. And the way worship music has kind of progressed is it's a lot of tom work. It's right.
Sorry.
Yeah. It's a lot of that crap. And so we were working on some of this yesterday morning, and I said, hey man, I know it's awkward, but I really need you to count out loud for this. And I kid you not, like he went from like struggling to barely keep up to he started counting out loud, that played it perfectly 10, 11 times in a row.
Yeah.
And then he stopped and he goes, like that? And I was like, yep. And that just further solidified this. And I apologize for the background noise. We're in a basement and that's the sump pump going off.
It was snowing this week.
There was like
melting.
Yeah, 5 or 6 inches of snow, and now it's sunny and 50 degrees. So
yeah. So, and obviously you're hearing like the musical side of this, of the rhythm section. So like at the end of the rhythm section, if you download the PDF, there's a question. There's actually 2 questions. Last one is the second to last one is your student displaying grit, continuing forward even when it's a little ugly? That is the rhythm that we want to see, because it's not just about them getting good at music. They will eventually get good at music. That's really not the problem.
Sure.
The problem is that they want to quit when things are hard, and that is not a good. It's not a good way to live life, because life is hard. It's not a good way to go about learning a new skill, because no one's great at everything the first time they show up.
And you can think about Alex Hormozy or Dave Ramsey or any of the kind of leaders in the mental health and physical health, business growth, all of that. John Deloney is another one of them.
Tony Robbins.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. They all talk about failing forward.
Always.
And you can't fail. If you fail and stop, then it absolutely is a failure. But if you fail, you get up and you do it again, you do it right.
Yeah,
that's a win.
100%.
And that's where our catchphrase around here comes from. Slow plus ugly equals awesome.
Yeah.
And it's so hard for a 7-year-old to manifest that, but when it happens, it's amazing.
When it happens, it's amazing. That's why we beat it into their heads. And that's why the pace. Like, so one of the things that we have a lot of processes here, but my wife, Krista, who's the CEO, she handles a lot of the day-to-day. Yep. And she does all onboarding. And the first part of that conversation is, her explaining kind of how we do things. And this is part of it. It's like, hey, like we're heavy on the instructor relationship with your student, because we want to give them a mentor, somebody they can look to, somebody that can befriend them and lead them and encourage them, not just in music, but in life. And what we do is we try and pace our lessons in such a way that, like, yeah, we can grab a book and just dump the whole thing on them.
Sure.
Or, right, we can give them tools.
Sure.
And then when they look at the book, they go, oh, I know what's going on here, because they have tools to look at the thing.
I have a student who's so hungry to learn. He's an adult student, just started playing guitar, and he came to his lesson last week and he was like, so I bought a book to go through at home after our lesson. I said, okay, what book? And he goes, Mel Bay Modern Method Book 1. I was like, great. What are you learning? He's like, so far I've learned Twinkle Twinkle Little Star on the E string. And I'm like, right. Great. Cool.
But, and he can read it.
And he can read it.
Yeah.
And I said, so why are you going through that? And keep in mind, my teacher made me go through all the Mel Bay books when I was a kid. And I almost think he did that to torture me. But I'm thankful for sight reading and I'm okay with that. this guy has no interest in sight reading. And I was like, so why are you going through? He's like, I don't know. I figured I needed to learn something, and that was a highly recommended book. And I was like, if you spent that extra 5 minutes a day that you're spending on that book going over the stuff that we're going over, which I think at the time was like root position chords and root major and minor scale. We might have even got into like the second mode. We might be in Dorian, and spelling out scale degrees and all that. Like if you spent an extra day or extra couple minutes on that every day, like that would push you a lot further than this. And he was like, yeah, maybe. Okay.
And no, that's a good, like, so that's a pace thing. So here's like a conversation in general. So this is kind of cool. It's like I think I know who you're talking about. Yep. I know Acoustic Sonic. He's got Acoustic Sonic now. They got in trouble. No,
not Todd.
Oh,
no,
yeah,
no. This guy. Yeah, we'll talk later.
Okay,
yeah,
cool. But like, so he's a newer student for you. No,
nope.
Same. Okay, that's interesting.
Yep.
Okay, I'm trying to like even like grasp who the human is in my head, because I don't like. There's hundreds of students here, so I don't know everybody. Well, anyways, so like that's a pace question. It's are we as instructors communicating right what we're looking for our students? And I don't know. Maybe he missed it.
Yeah. Well, so that did trigger that conversation of like here is what we're doing.
Yeah.
Here's my curriculum. And because I adapt for every student.
Yeah.
However, I have a set thing of like, if you want to be a songwriter, this is the direction we're going. If you want to be a shredder, this is the direction we're going. If you want to be a worship leader, this is the direction we're going. The first several steps are the same, period. Because you have to know your instrument.
Yeah.
And while a songwriter may not be the person who's going to go and know all the modes and be able to spell them and be able to say that Phrygian has a flat 2 and a flat 3 and a flat 6 and a flat 7, they will be able to be the person who can add a 13 to any chord, because that's how their brain works. And so, you. And so while we're working through that, you have to learn your root position chords. And even if you're not going to use your modes, you have to understand the modes. You have to understand that everything relates to each other. And so as we were going through that, I said, look, you want to play at church? Here is the fundamentals of what we're learning that I need you to grasp before we start jumping into songwriting and sight reading. And so it helped when I laid everything out. I said, look, here's the list that we're going through. You're right here. We're like 3 weeks away from doing all of that.
Yeah.
And that helped. And that actually made me step back a second for the rest of my students and say, hey, just to let you know, here's where we're at with where we're going. And I know what your end goal is. Here's my goal for you. And we're almost there.
Yeah. No, that's good. And that's what...
Setting expectations.
And that's also what these filters are for, right? And that's like the love, value, cared for of why we teach as a filter. It's a filter on how we interact with all our students. Relationship, rhythm, and repetition is a filter for how we approach things. And because we all have different things that we do. Like that was great. I loved like walking through that. That was cool. Because we've all had those moments where like, our students like, I don't know why I'm doing this.
Right.
Like, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. And like, well... the reason is because I know you're not going to play with click, for 5 minutes more at home, but you will do it 5 more minutes here, and you'll do it perfectly.
Yep.
And then we will apply dynamics. Then we'll move forward. Anyways, so and then the secondary question: so can they move forward? Are they displaying evidence that they have grit? And the last question there is your student doing well in lessons? Right. So like the bottom question on relationship is the student instructor relationship good? Like, are they having a good time? Do they enjoy one another? Do they feel loved, valued, and cared for? But then on the back end of that is your student doing well in lessons. And doing well in lessons is there good rhythm? Is there honesty? Is there love, valued, cared for? Is there the goal Is that goal being met of love, value, cared for in spite and not in spite, but in light of where they would like to go as a musician, right? And all those things are kind of all lining up. And then we move into repetition. And repetition is probably my favorite thing, just in general, because if you can repeat something, you know it. And if we know it so well, how could it fail? And the coin phrase around here is repetition bleeds consistency, and consistency is a mark of a professional. Yep. So if that's true, it's also twofold. So there's repetition that happens from the weekly lesson cycle. Mm-hmm. There's repetition that's happening about practice at home, and we're going to talk about practice here in a second. But then there's also repetition on how the instructor shows up, on how the student shows up, and what that repetition of those expectations look like, right? So at home, practice is a massive conversation, and it's actually going to be the next podcast, so you're going to want to tune in. It's called Let's Talk About Practice. When it comes out, you're going to hear about it. But our rule of thumb is this: 2 to 3 minutes every day. Insert it into bedtime. Insert it into something. There's something you do as a family every day. That'll work. 2
to 3 minutes, dedicated. Play as much as you want.
Yes. Play as much as you want. But actual
2 to 3 minutes of real practice.
Real practice.
And I have a student who actually, a guitar student who has gone through all the modes. Mm-hmm. And actually the student's related to you. It's your daughter, who told me yesterday, I just can't memorize this. Mm-hmm. And I said, well, how are you practicing it? And she said, well, I play through it sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, here's what I want you to do. Yeah. Set a timer on your phone. Mm-hmm. For 2 minutes on Monday. Mm-hmm. You're just going to play the first mode. Mm-hmm. For 2 minutes on Tuesday, you're just going to play the second mode, mm-hmm. and so forth. Mm-hmm. And I said, at the end of the week, you may not have it memorized in the sense of you could grab Dorian and play it in any position on the fretboard, mm-hmm. but your fingers will know it. Mm-hmm. And you'll be able, once you get started, your fingers will just do it.
Yeah, fingers just do it. Yeah, yep. 100%. That's awesome. That's super cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I love hearing that. Yeah, my eldest daughter, she works here, and she also takes lessons here. Yep. And she's also a pain in the butt. Hi, Addison, if you're listening.
She's not listening, I guarantee.
She's definitely not listening. She's like, I hear enough of you all week long. So anyways, so she's a great example. So she's ADD. She's 15. She's incredibly responsible, yet she's incredibly scattered. Yep. And if you give her a free day and she has one thing to do, she won't do the one thing that she was supposed to do, because there was no schedule in the mix. If there's a schedule in the mix, she will absolutely 100% do it.
I was going to say, but if you say you have to do this one thing at 4 p.m. and it has to be done by 4:07 p.m.,
it'll be done.
It'll be done. Absolutely.
Be done. Now she might fight you on it, but it'll be done.
Oh yeah, she'll complain. But
we all we're both dads, and we all have. Actually, there's a lot of children represented by the instructors here, but we all experience the household things that you're experiencing, and you got to remember that your students are part of those other households that have. And to be quite honest, it seems like there's a lot of chaotic households because sports rule the roost. The schedule runs the family. The family doesn't run the schedule, and there's not carved out time. So you have to look and sneak in those 2 to 3 minute windows where you can. And as a parent or an instructor, you got to encourage the parent and your student to hunt for those in what's happening every day. But that's what we're looking for. And the other phrase around here we use is your best practice time is with us. Why? Because we have so many students here that are continually moving forward because the win isn't, again, all the things that we've mentioned up on the front end. It's about them as a human. And if they're showing up as a happy, healthy human to their instrument, which is also happy and healthy and engaged, they're just going to keep getting better. And I would much rather a student go and practice Dorian at home 2 to 3 minutes a day and do it wrong for 2 to 3 minutes a day, and they come back and I can fix that. I can't fix it when they spend an hour doing the wrong thing over and over and over and over again. Yep. It's, it takes forever to undo what you've done on accident. So there's that side of repetition, where it's practice, and then it's a physical repetition in booth, and this is freedom. I'd like, honestly, that's a whole idea is repetition equals freedom for a musician. Mm-hmm. One of the things that I teach in especially for my performers is practice blocks, and this is designed off of the idea of a touring, a touring artist and how they prep for prep for the show, from the idea of building the stage, flying the speakers, setting up the lighting, and renting the warehouse and timing it, tearing it down, timing it, tearing it back down, putting it back together, and the flow of that and the dedication that it takes. Repetition gives license to artists, guitarists, bassists, piano players, whatever, to be free, to be free with their instrument, to be actually creative, because you're playing the same thing you always do. But if you know your instrument so well, like, you're not thinking about what you're playing, you're thinking about how you can make it better. You're thinking about being engaged with the instrument or the audience or the artist with you or the singer with you. It gives a lot of space for heart and not just knowledge. Yeah. Which is really cool. Which is really, really cool. And I use repetition constantly. Jacob hears it constantly, because I'm just like, all right, we're doing the click and you're going to play this thing. And, whether it's a drum beat, from YouTube, there's a guy in there, Lumba Beats. He's been doing it forever. So the same drum tracks out there for like 12 or 13 years. Yep.
I used to feel bad when I would, with any instrument, when I would put on a click and say, all right, do this for 5 minutes. I was like, I'm not doing enough as an instructor. I should be taking those 5 minutes and doing X, Y, and Z, blah, blah, blah. And I remember you kind of gave me the freedom to be like, no, they need those 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 12 minutes or 15 minutes or, in Brooke's case, 30 minutes of just playing to a click. Yeah. I can't remember what student it was. This was like when we first opened this building, a couple months ago, 6 months ago, 7 months ago. I had a student. Gosh, I wish I could remember who it was. But they said we were playing to a click, and they stopped, and they were like, "Well, my arms hurt." And I was like, "You've been going for 30 seconds. Come on, dude. Let's keep playing." And I just thought about that, and I realized, like, oh, he's practicing the beat, and then as soon as he plays it right the first time, he stops. And so that's been a thing of, like, we got to play the beat. We got to keep going, keep it on loop. We can't add fills until we keep the beat on loop. And so talking that through with him, I remember the conversation. I'm kind of sad I can't remember which student it was, but I remember the conversation of, like, a song's 3 minutes long, sometimes 4 minutes long. What are you going to do when you have to play a song? And he goes, "Oh, I'm not." I said, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Oh, I don't need to play a song because I can play the beat." And I mean, he's like 7, 8 years old, but I was like, serious. Oh, he was super serious. It was Mason. It just came to me. Oh, yeah. And I was like, bro, first of all, like, you've given me a list of like 14 songs you want to learn. And he was like, yeah, but whatever his excuse was. And now, like, fast forward a couple months, like, he could pretty much play anything he sets his mind to, if he can focus for 3 minutes. And, like, he does a really good job. And, like, I'll put really hard beats in front of him, and he can keep up, and he can do it to a click. And it's all that repetition. I remember starting, we would do 30-second segments, and of course he goes, my arms hurt, whatever. And then we would do a minute segments, and then we built it up, and now he'll play the first 5 minutes. He'll play to a click all by himself, and I can use that time. I can go to the restroom. I can go get a drink, and I can come back. And the great thing, this building's small enough, I can hear him anywhere I go in the building. So I know if he stops. And of course, I have the loudest drum set in the building too. So, like,
you have the loudest drum set.
It's funny. You barely touch that kick drum, and you can hear it all the way. And
what's funny is what's weird. It's weird about this building is that in that for your room in that space is that you can hear it everywhere, but it's not offensive anywhere.
No. It's not like it's
you can. It's just the steadiness.
You can hear
if it goes away. Yeah. And I love that. I love that you can kind of tell like if that's going on. So similar for like an instrument like a violin, very, very difficult physically. Yeah. It's just a very physically taxing instrument for almost anybody. And I've got so many students, like I've got one student, he can play the G major scale. He's playing through some arpeggios of chords, like he can do it. But he has such a hard time holding that instrument.
Oh, sure.
And so like what we've started doing is like those like you're talking about 30-second bursts, like, hey, you're just holding it. And like we're not even playing, we're just holding it. We're just holding it. Why? Yep. Because he's not going to show up to do the hard thing on his own to do it, because the reward's not big enough. Like the reward is you get to make a scratchy G major scale on a violin. Sure. Like that's not anything to write home about. However, until it is, and there's no, and that's the thing about repetition and consistency. I can't tell you the time, the day, the hour, 3 months, 6 weeks, 5 months, a year away from whenever you started doing it. It just clicks, and you just are the thing that you were trying to do.
Yeah, and I think back to my early lessons with my original teacher, Mike. Mm-hmm. We were going through modes, and I was I don't know, maybe 11 or 12, and I remember going through it, and I could play all 7 modes. I could play them pretty fast, and all my soloing just sounded like I was running scales. Mm-hmm. And I remember like there was a moment while I was playing where everything clicked, mm-hmm. and the repetition that I had put into my fingers, and I could actually play proficiently, like phrases started coming out. Mm-hmm. And I just remember a moment where like I felt this freedom of I could probably play anything. Mm-hmm. And the knowledge of like, okay, well, if we're in the key of G, I can look at the fretboard and I can see the entire key. Yeah. Every string, every note, I know exactly where everything is. Mm-hmm. You could drop my hand anywhere on the fretboard and I could start playing. Mm-hmm. And not only just not running scales, but like actually playing phrases and playing melodically. And there was a moment that all clicked. And sometimes like that could take a month, that could take 6 years. And so it's not necessarily that you're a bad teacher or you're a bad student. It's everybody has that break-in period of a new idea. And sometimes like
I love that, a break-in period of a new idea. That's a great phrase.
Because sometimes it'll click right away, especially like Waylon.
Waylon just clicks. He just moves.
He just gets it and he moves on. And then but I have other students who they might need to run a pentatonic scale for 2 months before they're like, okay, I got it.
Or you get stuck in a feedback loop of the exact same creativity, the exact same idea that it's hard to break out of.
That's what McCormick was dealing with yesterday. You put a beat on and you said, all right, I need a song. And then he started playing a 12-bar blues and you're like, nope, no 12-bar blues. And he goes, sorry, the ideas aren't there. And it's like, nope, you're just not trying the ideas.
You don't get to phone it in. Like, you've got the you got the circle of fifths, like pick a key and go, you know? And I think that with repetition there comes not like there's the artist and the player side, but from the teaching side and from a student learning side, there's beauty in it. It's like, all right, I know what to expect. Here's the repetition, and here's my ability to show up in the moment. Here's my ability to, like, I'm just gonna sit with a G chord. Right? I'm just going to strum it. What happens if I strum it harder? What happens if I take the same strum pattern I've had forever and I reimagine it with subtractive strumming? Like, what happens if I choose to land on just ups right here? Right? And your student never has the license to be creative in a productive way. Without that opportunity, and which is, that's what makes us unique on a bunch of fronts. And there's also not a show. Well, we do shows here, but like, there's not like a gig every 6 weeks or something where like all of our students are involved in, and like, you got to be doing this, and this. You got to learn those parts. No. It's about the student. Excuse me. So, and then, like the last thing that I just want to throw out here on repetition, that's also in the PDF, is, it's not about how much knowledge the student gets. It's about the repetition they can apply. It creates discipline, and the longer they can show up to do the task at hand, the better they'll become. And then, I just believe that. It's just the truth. It's just the truth.
Yep.
I would take a player that understands what half steps, whole steps are, that know the key of G so well, and whether they're playing a piano or they're playing a violin or cello, they can take those formations and they can move.
Yep.
They can move them, and they understand kind of where they're going. But at the end of the day, if the student doesn't feel loved, valued, cared for, it doesn't really matter anyways.
True. Yep.
That's it. So that's kind of the what. That's what we do and how we gauge student progression around here. And the truth is it's different for every student, just like Jacob said. Right. His wins aren't my wins aren't his wins. The only win that we're all going to agree on is love, value, cared for, and click.
Amen.
Yeah, that's like death and taxes around here.
Yeah, seriously.
Love, value, care for, and click. And it's hard. This is the harder way, because the way to phone it in would just be, there's a curriculum, there's a thing everybody does. It's easier that way. Jacob said that, he's got, same things that, there's steps for every student. I go even a step away from that, and I go, what do you want to play? I don't know. I'll play some things. We'll listen to some things. Well, I kind of like this. Okay, sweet. And so as soon as the student lands wherever that plane is, whatever instrument it is, I go, all right, this is where we're going to start, because that starting point informs how I'm going to start. Because at the end of the day, if they're playing piano, they got to learn scale no matter what. So, it doesn't have to be C. It just doesn't have to be. In fact, I'd prefer it not to be, because then they're scared of black keys. Please, let's do B flat. Let's do G. Let's do F sharp. I don't care. It's going to be harder for them. Sure. Maybe. Or maybe not, because they still have to learn the notes. If it's violin, cool. We're doing second position instead of first. But I guess you better really figure out where your fingers are going to land, to be able to do that.
Right.
And that's okay. But yeah.
Yep. So sum all that up.
Sum all of it up. All right.
We have 3 pillars.
3 pillars. Relationship, rhythm, and repetition. You cannot have a fantastic lesson experience if the identity of that lesson is not rooted in the student being valued more than your own ego.
Yep.
Number 2, rhythm. You cannot be a professional musician if you do not have great rhythm, and you cannot get to be a professional musician if you don't have the rhythm of some type of routine and dedicated practice time in your life. And that comes from a parent, and it does not have to be an hour. It does not have to be an hour. It does not have to be an hour.
It does not have to be 30 minutes.
Or 20.
Or 15.
Or 10. It has to be positive. That is the thing you are missing out on by shoving it down your kid's throat. You're welcome. Anyways, and then repetition. And repetition, that's the gift for the instructor, because it gives license for the instructor to give a student the ability to be free inside of something that they know so well. How can they fail? Right. And when you ask them to do something that they can't do so well, they know that they can fail forward because they're confident in the thing they knew before.
Yep.
That is the 3 pillars, and I would highly recommend you implement them. They are messy to implement, but momentum is messy.
This is the hard way.
This is the hard way. Yeah. So,
but it's also the best way.
It is the best way. Not that we're the best. We kind of are the best, but at the same time, everybody can be their best. And there's studios around here that do amazing work, and there's studios all over the country that do amazing work, and there's also not. Yeah. and we've both been the people that were not. And that's why we're here.
But we're not doing that anymore.
We're not doing that anymore. So, listen, if you want to support us, FortvilleMusicGarage.com/the shop. I got it right. Nice. Subscribe, hit the bell, all the things. And if you're interested in talking to some more, feel free to directly email us or comment in the videos below. Please share, review, leave a review. Podcasters, leave a review. We got the 5-star review rocking. I love it. So just, see what happens next. Other than that, I think we're out.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
See you later. Have a good night.
Peace.